So I would like to read for you chapter 8 out of the book. That is when the trouble started in the Netherlands. In it, I will talk about a wc. The literal translation for wc is toilet. This is important because the toilet was in a little room about 3.5 by 4 feet. It had 4 walls and a door and was therefore the strongest room in the house. Chapter 8. The occupation begins. Just before daybreak on May the 10th, 1940, the spine-chilling wail of sirens woke Sieglinde and me up. We ran out of our bedroom in our 90s and met our parents and Corrie in the hall. What? Quick, everyone, go to the wc. It's the safest place in the house. Papa pushed his confused and terrified children down the stairs. He led Mama to sit on the lid of the toilet with me on her lap. Corrie and Sieglinde crowded along the walls on either side of the toilet. After he closed the door, Papa stood on top of the toilet behind Mama, bending his head so he wouldn't hit the water tank. Papa, I began. Why, what? Those sirens mean we're about to be bombed. From now on, every time you hear them, run to the wc. How long do we have to stay here? I don't like being in here like this. Sieglinde's eyes were huge in her pale face. She hid her face as we heard the whistle of the first bomb. Another siren will sound the all clear. We cannot leave until we hear it. It's stuffy in here. Could I crack the door, please? Corrie's hand was on the door handle. Yeah, but only by a sliver. My mouth felt like cotton as I listened to the repeated whistles and crashes of bombs being dropped. As we cowered in the bathroom, Germany bombed our entire coastline in a tactical blitzkrieg. When the bombing finally stopped and we heard the sustained sound of the all clear, we tumbled out of the wc and made our way to the living room window. Oh, Cor, look! The entire row of houses right behind the sand dunes has been flattened. Those poor people. Mama had tears in her eyes. Putting his arm around her shoulders, Papa said, they'll need our help. Let's do what we can, Guusje. It's all we can do now. Do we have any spare blankets? Left standing by the window, my sisters and I watched the smoke, visible against the still burning homes, curling up from the devastation. Corrie muttered, I doubt hiding in the wc helped any of those families. People streamed out of the bombed houses, but that was not what drew my horrified attention. There in the shadows was the soldier I'd named Der Stiefel, after his shiny black boots. He was standing with his legs apart and his arms folded. Had he followed us? From Germany? His thin lips twisted into a foul smirk as he watched overwhelmed survivors standing motionless in the street. Some, after coming to themselves with a start, hurried away from their crumbling homes. As they turned back to watch from a distance while their possessions went up in flames, the Stiefel drew closer. Several people sat down right in the street and wailed, and his ice blue eyes lit up in malicious pleasure, like he was enjoying the tastiest of meals. Corrie, what are those people doing? Why don't they get up? Why don't they run from their Stiefel? I don't know who you're talking about with this Der Stiefel business, but for the survivors, they're in shock. They probably just don't know what to do. When I turned away from the window, people were everywhere in my house. Some I knew, and some I did not. I was relieved that the Stiefel was not among them. Several survivors sat on our floor, just staring out into space. Others were weeping, and many clung to each other. Papa directed the continual influx of people, telling them where to sit and trying to provide what comfort he could. Mama served endless cups of tea. Neither parent had the time to console their frightened children, so we kept out of the way, observing everything with pale faces. Vera, one of Mama's childhood friends from Germany, who had a daughter my age, came in, holding her daughter's hand and carrying her baby boy Johan in her arms. The infant was completely wrapped in a blanket, even his face. Whimpering, Vera held him tightly to her chest. Mama gently put her arm around her friend, carefully exposed Johan's face, gasped, and covered him up again. Vera, where's Jan? Is he coming? No, he was out fishing when the bombing started. Our house is flat. I don't know where he is or if he's alive. She sank into a chair and buried her face in the baby's blanket. Eventually, the other adults came to understand that Johan was dead, but Vera just couldn't let him go. She told Mama that a shell fragment hit him in the head while he was sleeping in his crib. After several days, Vera reluctantly allowed Jan, who joined us a few hours after she did, to take the tiny body away. I was not allowed outside, but stood at the front window, watching the refugees in the street entering almost every home. The doors on our street all stood open. For us, people kept on flooding in, and my parents welcomed them all.